hitchhiking in the rain, it's sparking in my vein, the sound and the fury, the crush of the...
By the latter 1980s, heavy metal music had gained a significant share of the national and international market. The music industry not only welcomed heavy metal, but in fact depended on it for much of its revenue. In Knoxville, Tennessee, however, this genre was not so welcome. Heavy rock was very much an underground scene, and acceptance for such was not so forthcoming. A select few venues catered to the clientele, and even fewer landlords extended the welcome mat to the bands who needed practice space. This setting spawned a special scene underneath Gay Street in downtown Knoxville. A place called Sliman's was born when need met opportunity at 411 South Gay Street, where an unrented office basement lent itself perfectly to the musicians shunned by polite society. Sliman's became the haven for local hard rock practice studio space. Just as one might expect, practicing was but one of the things that took place in this oasis of subversive activity. The party, the ridiculously wild and incessant party which claimed the flowers of many a young girl and bazillions of brain cells of the conveniently unsupervised young men, simply became background noise, or a backdrop, if you will, for a truly unique and inclusive environment that fostered an unbridled creativity that still echoes through the streets and speakers of Knoxville to this day. This film is an attempt to tell the story of a moment in time. A moment which came to define and direct many lives. A formative moment for the musicians, their friends, and the local music scene in Knoxville. A moment which in reality lasted only a few years, but still lives forever in the heart, if not the conscious memory.
Dude, I really don't remember.
It's a secret. We don't want nobody to know nothing.
I don't know much about Sliman's, actually.
What's the statute of limitations?
It really was the scene back then, Sliman's.
It was a very unique time, and probably the only time something like that's ever happened in Knoxville.
What I remember is just a bunch of bands, late 80s, early 90s, all kinds of different bands playing down there, practice rooms, parties, people coming in and out, cops every so often, fire marshal.
Do you remember anything, Chad?
Barely.
Well, we're talking about back in the 1980s, and I had a building downtown called the 411 building, and in that building we had a lower level with about 7,000 square feet, so I had to divide it into numerous office spaces and office suites. But at that time, it was very difficult to rent them. We had tried a lot of things, and so I was looking for tenants. I got a phone call, and I had a band that wanted to use it at night to practice.
It was as close to, I guess, an LA scene that we could possibly have in the little scruffy town of Knoxville, but you'd go down there to be, as soon as you walked in the door, I remember you'd hear music as soon as you started down the stairs, and it'd be the two metal doors that locked. You know, and you put your key in, you lock it. As soon as you open, you just music is loud, and you smelt the smells, you know, beer and weed and unclean toilets and stinking ass musicians, man. You know, it was, what else can a 17-year-old musician who thinks he's a rock god already want, man?
It was a great network of diverse young guys down there. You know, all of us trying to make it in the music business, and all of us wanted to do it, you know, do our own thing.
Rock and roll heaven in a lot of ways.
It offered us a place to go and rehearse every day, and, you know, and at that period of time that just didn't exist. You know, and, you know, today we hear of stories, you know, in different cities and stuff where all these bands were in one location and practiced and rehearsed. And this was in that same time frame. You just didn't know about it.
Watch this documentary, and it's going to show you the definition of an underground music scene in a city with limited resources for bands, and the situation there was like unparalleled to anything else I personally have ever experienced. We just had so much fun, and you know, I just, you know, I wish that everybody could have been a part of that scene and experienced what we got to experience. I feel very fortunate to have been a part of that.
This is Gay Street, downtown Knoxville. Lots of shops and businesses dot this mile or so stretch of downtown street. Everything from shopping to movie theaters, fine dining to bars and nightlife. Not unusual things to see on a downtown street. But over here, just a few years back, there was something very unusual. Well, unusual for the place and time. For us, it just seemed natural. Didn't every small town have a place where the bands could gather and just go wild? So how do you tell a story like Sliman's? Little physical record exists of the period, as cell phones or digital cameras were still experimental technology. A video camera hadn't evolved very far beyond a VCR with a shoulder strap and a tethered camera. Certainly not things in the common arsenal of a local heavy metal band. It's a complex story to tell because, as with most good stories, there are countless isolated incidents, coinciding with constant chaotic personalities, marinated in the cacophony of exotic substances, divided by many points of view and artfully blended together for smooth flavor and drinkability by expert craftsmen who... Wait, what? Anyway, Sliman's was different. It's definitely not the kind of place you'd want your 16-year-old daughter to be. Hell, you really wouldn't want her there if she was 30, unless maybe you were in a band that practiced there. Or unless maybe she was.
Nobody in their right mind wanted to go down there.
I mean, it was the underground too, though, the aspect of it. You know, it was kind of like you're either in or you're not. You know, or you might wander in, but you might not wander back out.
Yeah.
You know.
Now, the whole reason Sliman's ever existed was for the bands to have a place to practice. And if you'd ask most of them, they'd probably tell you they'd rather not have had all the foolishness that went on. The purpose was the music. Sliman's was an instrument. It was a tool. It was a means to an end. It was a place you could set up your stuff, turn it up, jam like hell. Nobody ever said to turn it down. When you were done, you could walk through the halls and have a beer or whatever and listen to the other bands.
How many bands can you guys remember that were down there?
Starting in the back corner, it was Hard Knocks, then there was Painted Angel, then there was
Jolly Roger and Runaway. Without Warning.
Stark Raven, Torture.
I can't remember. I remember the Blue Shrooms was back in the back.
What was the name of those guys from Farragut that took Blue Shrooms room?
You know, of course, there's the dudes from Hyper Tribe.
Hyper Tribe, that's right.
Stentorian, come on, somebody help me out here.
There was a band that moved in that first room as you come in the door there. I don't remember their name.
Totally forgot about the Step Kids. They were the ones in that front room when we walked in.
Most of the bands, they had their style of what they're doing. I don't think they've really much changed. I mean, change was more they got better at what they're doing and playing.
I think that was the truth with Jolly Roger. They come in there as younger guys playing, and then over time and listening to other people, they kind of grew at it and got better as they went along.
And Runaway started out a Bon Jovi type cover band, and but by the time we got to Sliman's and had several member changes, it was more, we were more like still trying to play cover tunes, but with a heavy metal edge, much heavier metal edge.
stuff, yeah.
Rusty Coleman, Mark Coleman, Scott Ashley.
And Stark Raven, which was Brian Quarles, John, the drummer, Kevin Farmer, who's no longer with us, which was Kevin Farmer, is a great guy. I loved him and miss him dearly.
We took it to the extreme. You know, there was a lot of, you know, dissonance. You know, there was a lot of melodic stuff.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of doubling up on guitar melodies and trading off on leads. You know, speed metal to a T.
Even the bass played leads.
I think Torture had the tightest, I guess, they were the tightest band because they practiced constantly, and Andrew was phenomenal, just phenomenal bass player. And Chad was an awesome guitar. They're all phenomenal. I mean, they're all killer, you know, but I remember Andrew just, Jesus. Like Cliff Burton and Steve Harris, if you just put those two together, that's what Andrew was.
Sound.
Black Sabbath type of heavy type of.
A little bit more Sabbathy, but a little faster than your normal Sabbath tune. Stentorian, there was another band that was down there during the day, the early part of the Sliman era there.
I still think of Stentorian when I hear like Led Zeppelin songs.
Yeah, some Rush songs.
They did such a good job of sounding like, when they did cover songs, they did them so good. I think of them when I hear those songs now. Still. Yeah, they were good.
Well, you had so many bands that would try to do covers that would butcher them. They wouldn't do that. They actually played them as they should have been played.
A lot of the band members were very talented, and even though they weren't well known, most of them occasionally had gigs and in which they were able to perform. The space that they occupied sort of became their own little place. They would do paintings on the wall or hang posters, put different sayings or words up there. Some we wouldn't want to describe here, but I pretty well let them do what they wanted to do. It didn't matter if they painted on the walls.
You know, there was graffiti everywhere, especially our room. We made it a point to have anybody come in and write something on the wall.
There were walls just like these. They were paneling with no insulation.
God forbid somebody's making out in another room, you knew it.
People come over, dude, we can't hear what we're doing over here.
Whenever Stark Raven, Painted Angel, or Hard Knocks wasn't practicing, we could practice.
You're talking about, you know, 9 bands, 45 members each. That's 45 people. And then their buddies and girlfriends, and that's another 45 people. That's 90 people on a Friday night. And then there's the people that came to see the bands because they knew we were down there. On the weekends, man, there could be 200 people down there. And walking down the hallway was like changing the radio dial from room to room to room. This whatever you were closer to, the door, is what band you heard the most. And it all just kind of mixed in the middle.
We had them 11 amps that, you know.
You put your earplugs in and it's still loud. Yours still ring.
You put the earplugs in so you could go louder.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've still got a ring to this day, and this you're here.
The noise would be a little too much, and what I would find is they were leaving their door open, so I'd close their door.
The best things I'd enjoy is not practicing, is jamming, getting there, getting half drunk. And I get on Jeff's drum kit. Well, I'd get in there and play. We'd always be in Torch's room because Jeff was the only one that didn't mind everybody playing his drum.
There's times down there that I remember taking my bass and going into someone else's room, and these people from several bands jamming together and just having fun kind of stuff. And you know, even some of those times you might have, you know, bands like Stark Raven, those members, and some members of some of the poser bands, and all playing together.
Well, most everybody got along.
Nothing bad ever happened here. At least nothing to earn it the reputation it gained. It was just very different from what Knoxville had come to expect of a local music scene. See, our town has always supported a thriving local scene. By the latter half of the 80s, there were basically 2 established camps in the local bandscape: country and classic/southern rock. You might find some alternative. Maybe you could find some soul, but chances are if you knew where to see either of those, you were probably the ones making it. Truth is, there was rarely ever more than 1 or 2 places at a time you could see a heavy act.
But it's funny, back then, you know, today there's all different kind of places in Knoxville for bands to go and play, but back then there really wasn't.
There wasn't.
That was the biggest problem we had, is finding places that let us play. It was usually the whole places around town. Most of the other places wouldn't let us in.
Well, Knoxville didn't have no metal scene.
Rumors was the best club to play. If you can get in Rumors on a Sunday night, that was the big deal. That was Madison Square around here, I guess, at that time.
Most of the places we played were, our first time there was our last time there.
And a lot of them, you know, we played at the China King and, and gig there a lot. That's pretty much the place to be there for a while.
Oh God, I forgot about the China King.
No slam dance. No slam. No slam.
No slam dance. No slam dance.
No slam dance. No slam dance.
No slam dancing.
No. More beer sale. More beer sale.
This little Chinese guy named Lou was his name. He was like,
you don't sell enough beer, you don't play.
4 feet tall or something, you know. But he walked around with his flashlight, you know. And if he had he called it slam dancing, you know, which I guess it was at the time. But you know, we didn't even really think it was slam dancing. But moshing was what we called it. But he had this sign that he walked around with, you know, and his flashlight. And if he caught you, you know, with just an inkling of slam dancing, you were out, man. They would throw your ass right out of there.
Where Torture Stark Raven would be playing, we'd get out there and we'd get a little pit going like that. And he'd come around out there, little real guy, about that big. We'd come out there and he'd tap you. And he had him on the ceiling, was what was funny. He'd point straight up and you look up and say, no slam dance. And it would be spelt just like that, no slam dance. And I remember one night there's this one dude in there. We all loved Lou. I mean, you know, of course, if you asked us to stop, we would stop. And there's this one asshole and came in there one night, and I remember he was giving him a hard time, and he was just some riff off the street. And Lou came up and just gave him the Vulcan death pinch or something right there, and the dude fucking stopped. And Mr. Lou led him out the door with his 2 fingers, led him all the way out the door, and dude was just walking like this. That's all it was.
The nicer place across the street, the library, used to have bands, and it was a decent place, good stage, all that kind of stuff. Went in and talked to their booking manager about getting a gig, and he gave me some crap about, oh, well, no, metal bands, you know, you don't hardly bring any crowds, and they never drink any beer, we don't do any good. And I thought, dude, you're doing crack. I mean, and I told him, hey, we're playing across the street next week, why don't you come see what you like. He never did come in, but we had, the funny thing was, we had some people that had gone to the library that night, and they said, yeah, there's like 5 or 6 people there. We're in China King, it was supposed to hold 120 people. It had 160 people come in that we know, paying customers, plus our friends and stuff, other people we let in. Lou was sold out of beer, and his wife was running down the street to the store to buy beer to sell to people in there. And it's like, yeah, okay, we don't sell enough beer, right?
My favorite story of Lou and China King, I think it might be the Chinese shit. Does everybody remember the Chinese shit? Lou fed us dinner one night to pay us for playing, so to say, and he fed everybody. And at the time I was vegetarian, so I didn't eat like any meat or anything. I was only eating like rice and some vegetables, but everybody else ate like some chicken and other stuff he made. And old Brian stands there from the table and says, man, I'm gonna go take me a big old Chinese
I don't know how else to put it.
And he goes off to the bathroom, and like a few minutes later I go in the bathroom and Brian's hugging the porcelain God, puking his guts out. I said, oh, that's a Chinese
You come in, you set up, do a sound check, you stop, and he just laid out a buffet of food for you. And whether you made a dime or a dollar that night, you got fed. Yeah, I remember that about it. It was awesome. One of the best food in the world.
Good times, but not so much good food.
In 1988, beneath Gay Street, heavy metal could mean many different things. It didn't have to mean hair, but it sometimes did. It didn't have to mean drugs and young spandex-clad ladies or dudes, but it sometimes did. What it meant most all the time to the underground inhabitants of late 80s Knoxville was freedom. Freedom to create, freedom to express, loudly. So forget playing out for now. Before you can do that, you gotta get your shit together. Mom's not gonna tolerate the noise coming from the basement. Dad's not gonna listen to the neighbors complain about the racket coming from the garage. What do?
I think it was just a matter of checking around to see if there was anywhere, because Sliman's was already established.
I think you were the one that actually found out about it.
Yeah, found out about it through someone else when I went to try to rent places, because we initially had thought about, well, we'll go to a storage facility that's got electricity to rent there, and then we were thinking there's no air there.
A friend told me that there was a practice place down on Gay Street, and yeah, they rent for cheap. I think rent was $200, $250, I think.
It was cheap. I think we paid like, what, $150 a month?
I think it was a little bit more, but yeah, so
I think it was about $150 a month back then. Late 80s,
wasn't
early 90s.
Too bad on that end. It's just, you know, if you didn't pay rent, you better watch out, because next thing you know, your equipment's sitting up in his office and you gotta go see the man, you know, but
yeah, I had to go up there a few times and redeem equipment once I paid my bill.
Yeah, so he'd always come down, and there was never no question. You'd walk in the room and it would be gone, and all right, well, we got to pay him. If I didn't have no money, we just wouldn't practice until I got it. So.
Now, it was at this point that I asked Jim Sliman, with all that you had to have known you were getting yourself into, what in the name of God were you thinking renting all these bands? I thought I was ready for the answer. I was not.
Well, the truth be known, back when I was in high school, I did have my own band. And I started in the 9th grade. There was a need at the school we were having an event, and they wanted to have music. And so I thought, well, I just put together a group, and we did. And that became a group known as the Gay Tones. The Gay Tones. We kept that band for years. We did proms and so forth, and had some very talented guys. So I did have a fondness. I never told the guys that, I don't think. They would have one up on me.
The very same laws that govern the universe, including a fairly rapid evolution and then a consequent inertia, led to an environment free of restriction which manifested itself in an inevitable mayhem. In other words, the lack of any real authority set up a complete free-for-all.
I remember
I can tell you one like.
I remember walking.
Don't tell that one.
They were working on Gay Street at the time, putting in the bricks and stuff. You remember that?
So it was already going on whenever I got there, and I was like, F it.
They had that girl, they called her Annie with no panties over there with them. You remember that?
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Phil, she was rooming with Phil and Stinky and Annie with no panties over there.
He said, I know where we can go.
I said, Mike, we're going somewhere. What? We're going somewhere. You know, like, oh, okay, so.
Oh yes, I remember now.
Oh, there was, now see, I don't want to get too, you know, there's some incriminating stuff that I can't get into, but.
I've not done anything illegal. I still work at Casa Gallardo washing dishes. I was a ceramic engineer. And I still have my damn hairnet on and shit, you know, so I was walking in and, you know,
I was probably high already, or I probably wasn't high already.
And so me and Mike said, you want to ride with me? And I said, sure. And so we ride over and we're sitting in the parking lot. He comes back out, and about a week later, we find out he's going over and he's buying cocaine from this guy. And me and Mike took him over there. Well, I rode once. Mike had been over several times and had no idea. Innocent.
And those two clowns come running in, and they hit their brakes too late, and they were like flying, and they've been partying.
He just unfolded out of that Volkswagen Bug.
We're practicing, and we hear crash. We just kind of look at each other and think, oh, went running upstairs.
They're like, everybody at once, no!
That wasn't enough, apparently. So we lowered a rope down through one of the upstairs windows.
My ribs were so sore from swinging.
And sure enough, he was pulling off her car, heading down Gay Street. And we're chasing him, running, realize we're not going to catch his car. And then all of a sudden we realize,
and it was up on the side of the building, flat up against the wall.
Knocks the out of me. And everybody's like, oh! She bounces off the other side of the door. She's airborne over the back seat.
I don't know how many times we went through that ordeal with those.
Yeah.
And I saw her eyeballs go like that.
I think he ended up getting his ass whipped a time or two over that too, so.
She's yelling at him, you. I'm yelling at the cop, she's got my earrings, she's got me, because she's pulling me toward the damn car. So we're all three going toward the cop car.
And I came around and hit him with the nightstick across his face. And he hit the concrete so fast, it shocked even me.
And when we all ran up there, he's trying to get out, said, here man, hide my drugs, here man, hide my drugs. We said, dude, we ain't hiding your drugs, you're going to jail.
Good luck with that, man.
That was, you know, his grandmother's car you just hit.
Well, let's cross the side of it, Mike Morris loves see.
Those are good times.
Like all good things, Sliman's too had to come to an end. As could be expected out of any blatant party hub full of underage girls learning to party with a band in a small southern town, it had to get some attention from the authorities.
Of course, the fire marshal, and this is going to be the story that's probably going to be on everybody's list that tells you about it.
Oh God. It was some underage kid was out on Gay Street drinking, like a 15-year-old kid, and he was drinking a beer, and the cops drove by and stopped, and he ran down the stairs. And the cops came down there, and they like to freaked.
From what I gather, what happened is there's an underage girl, or I don't know if she's underage, but it was the fire chief's daughter was in Rusty's room, in Runaway's room, and got caught.
I believe she said something to the effect of, you can't mess with me, I'm the fire chief's daughter. And they took that challenge.
Fire marshal came down, and you know, wrote up a few violations.
And I remember particularly in Stark Raven's room, he had a big chaw backer and he's sitting there spitting the damn floor, and f***ing Quarles went ballistic on him. Quarles went ape shit, started cussing him, telling me he ain't gonna spit in our f***ing floor and all this stuff, and just disrespecting us. And there was cops down there, you know, standing, you know, like that.
But he just went from room to room and basically, you know, treated everybody like an absolute dog do.
They're going around all the rooms. Of course, there's a bunch of younger kids down there drinking and stuff like that. As they're going through all the rooms, the whole time torture's playing. We had to practice. We answered the door. Here's a couple cops and some fire people. It's like, what's going on?
And I was like one of 3 people that stayed there all the time. You know, that's where I lived. It wasn't just a band room, it's where I lived for a year and a half at least. And so they saw the beds, and they, you know, and there was all these underage girls down there, and they called their parents to come get them.
And basically, there is a shakedown, is all it was, and they were just trying to get us in trouble and get as much of us arrested or run us off as possible.
You know, basically after that, the big party was done. People still came and bands still practiced, but for the most part, it was done.
Well, I look back on it as a good experience for them, and it's a good experience for me. I hope that increased their knowledge of music and their appreciation of music, which has been a big factor in almost all societies. It's changed a little bit today, of course, than what it was back then. I hope I've met guys that have children now that were there, and I hope that is passed on to their children. I know I have a son that's in a band and plays several instruments. It's a big part of America, and I'm glad I could help the guys.
You know, he allowed us to do it. You know, and no one has ever in this town done it since. Not on that scale. Not on, you know, and it really did help create a scene that probably still exists to this day. At least a lot of the musicians, which is still the same local scene, just different band names, like I said. You know, it helped, you know, because before that, you know, you had country, blues, and classic rock bands that dominated the Knoxville scene. And all of us young that were coming up, you know, heavy metal, you know, we had nowhere to go. And he gave us a place to go, you know. I don't think Knoxville scene would have developed the way it did if it weren't for Sliman's. Like I said, even if you weren't, like we said, even if you weren't in a band, that's where you came. That's where you went to see other musicians and become, maybe, hopefully, get in a band. You know, yeah, networking. That was networking back then instead of Facebook. You know, you went Sliman's. You know.
I feel like a good has come from it, and I enjoyed it at the time. I still look back on it, and I tend to smile when I look back on it, and I enjoy it again when they stop me on the street and ask me if I'm who they think that, and they say, "Well, you don't remember me, but I practiced in your building with a band, rock and roll band."
Sliman was a hell of a guy. He didn't have to do none of that for none of us. You know, and at the time he'd take him, you know, he'd take our drums and go, motherfucker, I'm gonna kick his ass. Looking back, hindsight's 20/20, man. He did all of us musicians such a favor, man, and brought a lot of us together.
The way I think of Jim Sliman is that was probably the best times of my life, and it wouldn't have happened if he hadn't rented those rooms out to all his bands.
Yeah, it was definitely some good times.
I give him credit for, you know, letting the whole thing happen.
Sliman, you know, I mean, he's a pretty cool guy, actually, when you think about it, as far as letting the bands rehearse there and stuff.
Well, thank you for saying that. I look back on it with fond memories, and I thank them in return.
I can't be been through a whole lot of bullshit and shit, and nothing seems to make the difference. And now the whole idea of program seems to be coming down around me. calling a master symphony, which I call it. Tell me to take a break. Tell me to take a holiday, and nothing all in all. And here it is. We'll try to keep you moving, and you laugh at my sweat. Sunshine. Losing my voice, losing my band, losing my girl. It's time to take a drink. Drink.